Dupree's Television Repair Shop. How may we help you? Your horizontal and vertical aren't working correctly? All right, we'll be right over. Thank you. Greetings, fellow viewers. Welcome to another episode of Is It Broke? Is It Fixable? Or Just Plain Durable? And a shout out to a happy 250 to America. You might be wondering, why all the red? Well, that will be explained in today's episode. Do you miss the days when a television actually looked like a piece of furniture? It didn't hang on your wall. It actually complemented your room and made a huge statement. You know, you might have even decorated the rest of the room around the television. Some of them were quite big. Some of them were very ornamental. Some of them were very long. Stromberg Carlson made a model that was an oriental theme. It was very unique. Well, in this episode, we're going to talk about black and white television. The idea of television began late in the 1800s, around the same time film was being developed. The history of film is also fascinating. The main part of the TV evolution was in the 1920s. John Logie Baird, who was an Englishman, and Philo Farnsworth were key inventors in creating working TV. John Logie Baird's television was mechanical, using circulating discs, and Philo Farnsworth's was electrical. Going into the 1930s, such early television sets were not widespread. They were very expensive. These early broadcasts showed snippets of news, sports, and short skits. In Germany, an alternative form of TV called the Nipkow disc was patented in Germany, but it really didn't go anywhere. Then, World War II arrived. That froze all development of television. Early television sets, they were not deemed very important commodities due to the need and circumstances of the war, and didn't pick up until World War II ended. Only after the war, when families grew and the economy soared, did television start to develop and become part of the household. Stealing the thunder from movie theaters, it also stole the thunder from radio. Up until the late 50s, all broadcasts were black and white. The broadcasts were distributed over the VHF and UHF signals, and at the time, before the days of satellite TV and cable, they were picked up by antenna only. Remember the rabbit ears? These TVs were around for several years as a home viewing option, but mainly picked up steam in the 1960s due to the consumer demand. Shows like Batman, Gomer Pyle, Disney's Wonderful World of Color, and Star Trek. The original series took advantage of color broadcast and provided a worth viewing experience. After that, black and white television started to slowly fade. Now we live in an age where there is no demand for it. Older shows like Andy Griffith, Dragnet, and The Honeymooners are still broadcasted in black and white, though efforts were made to colorize some of those show's episodes. TV wouldn't be what it is today without the original black and white broadcasts and products. Here's some interesting tidbits of trivia. Broadcasts that used the mechanical method provided a black and white image. In a way, even in the earliest days of television, they still used color. Another side note about mechanical television is you had to wear a lot of makeup, and that was a sticky wicket in itself because you also had to use many bright lights, and with many bright lights comes a lot of heat, which would then make the makeup start to feel icky. Cinema actually maintained a monopoly on color images for the first several decades of television. But the more the monopoly went on, the more the public whetted their appetite for color televisions. The monopoly ultimately hurt the film industry more than it should have, and ended up in closings of many theaters in the 50s. Resolutions of TVs were often much lower than they are today. When broadcasts started, they comprised of 405 horizontal lines, but by 1964 the resolution shot up to 625 lines because of advantages in technology. This meant more sharper and clear images for the color and black and white television sets. By 1979, cable was invented, providing more home options, and VCRs also came to TV. By the 90s and 2000s, LCDs and plasma TVs were replacing the bulkier cathode ray tube televisions, and going into the 2010s with LED. With LED, Wi-Fi, and other smart tech, TVs have become a new form of computer. There were also different options in the black and white era that were supposed to enhance the black and white TVs, like Sylvania had the halo light, which put a light around the tube, because with a tube like this, the 7JP4, it is already using a weak signal and image, so the tube just keeps getting weaker. So the joke with some of those black and white TVs was you had to watch them in the dark. There were many good ads back in the day for television as well. Here's an interesting one. Put your slides on your color TV. Over here's the color TV, and over there's the slide projector. There were also many different manufacturers of televisions. Who doesn't enjoy looking at a floor model TV? It gives you that vintage warm feeling. The only problem is with the super young generation, you have to keep reminding them, quit standing so close to the TV. Because they're not familiar with what happens if you stand too close to the TV. They're used to having a screen in their face. I mean, look at the advancements in technology here. You've got the huge floor model, and then you've got little Johnny there holding a what was considered handheld set. And here is another interesting page. Out in farm country, many of us consider Alice Chalmers just to be a tractor company, but that's not the case. They were an industrial company, and if you look at this ad, you can see that they were hugely into the industrial electronic industry as well. Another major issue with the new technology was cost. Until the cost came down on televisions in black and white and color, people could not afford to buy them. How many of you remember Philco as a television maker? We had a little black Philco from when Ford owned Philco in the 80s. Oh, there was nothing like turning the knob on and hearing it go bzzz. But all good things must come to an end. The tube was finally dying. And that was back in the day when we still had VHF and UHF, and you had to switch between the channels. And you had, here in the valley, you had the issue of Channel 10 from Altoona was competing with a channel from Harrisburg, so you had colored bars and distorted sound, because all of our signals here in the valley come through the bounce. Also, in the early days of television, theaters actually put like big projector kind of things in there to project TV onto the screen in the theater. It's also interesting to note that we had projecting TVs even around 1949, where you flipped the screen up, the tube was vertical, and then it projected it onto the screen with mirrors. And it's just amazing that it made that wide of an image. This is a very good book for talking about the early TV industry. It talks about the red and how black and white cameras didn't play nice with that. It also talks about how women back in the 50s were fascinated with wrestling on television. And this book has a lot of good just general information on early color television, black and white television. These are very, very early television news magazines, which later became radio and television news. Hugo Gernsback does an excellent job with these. Like in one of these, it talks about making a video phone call, and this is in the 30s. Who would have thought that was possible back then? It also talks about the Jenkins television, which most of us have never heard of. And then, of course, we have this nifty little booklet that was published when television was celebrating its anniversary. Does anyone remember what this signal was? And no repair shop is complete without its manuals. Well, thanks for watching. Hope you had a great and safe 4th. And enjoy the rest of this 250th year anniversary. Too windy for this because this isn't designed for this. It's designed to go into the stove. I need a blowtorch, which I do not have. But we'll get them lit. Happy 250! God bless America! As Tim Taylor would say, we need more power.